Sitting outside, enjoying my morning coffee, and I was thinking about that time when I was waiting in line for the National car rental desk, and I was thinking, I need to make some more videos. So, let's make some more videos. You want to see something old? Maybe something you've never seen before? Let's go. Take a moment and imagine being a kid in 1888. I often have had discussions with my kids who are now 20 and 18 about perspective. As many good dads do, you try to guide and lead your kids in the right way, give them advice, give them lessons learned, but you don't want to be the helicopter that just, dictates and does all of their heavy lifting and decision making for them. So often I present them in a world that did not exist like the one they have today. And not to get into the weeds about, how it's like being a teenager or a young adult in 2022. It's not easy, but it's nothing like it was when I was that age in the 1980s and early 1990s. Certainly, and this is not, groundbreaking at all, what it would be like in 1888, but still the simplicity and just the novelty of just the mundane and what we consider mundane is so interesting to me. So consider yourself a kid in 1888 and you receive a coupon or a card or an advertisement to go to your local store to pick up something for back to school. Now, I remember as a kid in the 1980s, back to school was a big deal. I kind of lived vicariously through my kids as they were growing up, but it wasn't the same. Back in the early 80s, even the late 70s, it's like, man, you found pencils with your name on it. You were golden. You got your Peaches, you got your Trapper Keepers. You laid everything out. You kind of just planned everything for that first day of school, right? Well, in 1888, apparently it was no different. So before I go into the depth of why I brought that up, because the back of this card is what portrays what I just explained. Let's talk about, more importantly, the front of the card. What you're looking at is a 1888 Buford Sons trade card. This is a set of 4 cards, and this is called The Umpire Lot Is Not a Happy One. And poor umpires, they just never get they're just reviled. They're a necessary evil. If you don't hear about one or you don't see one, that means they did their job well, right? And don't get me started on 2022 and reviews and overturned plays. It's a bit of a clown show. But anyways, back in 1888, in the genesis of baseball, apparently that's where the reviling of umpires began. So what we have here is a lot of players from both teams. You got the blue and the white and red going after him. Hey, at least he was consistent in his, negligence of good calls. Anyways, this is one of 4 cards that were given out by multiple companies. What a trade card was, so this actually, let me backtrack. So in 1888, Buford and Sons was a lithographic company. That company was one of the leading companies producing lithography for trade cards. So what they would do is they would create these images, and then companies would then slap their advertisement or whatever they wanted to on the back. Sometimes on the front. Actually, I've seen a couple of these cards that have an advertisement right here, or maybe down here. This one is clear on the front. I'll bring it closer to the camera here in a moment. But these trade cards were used by numerous companies. That was in part because it was easier to use artwork that was already produced rather than going through the trouble of creating your own. For that reason, the backs of the cards can be blank, If they chose to be blank, they just wanted to give out cool baseball imagery or include an advertisement or a coupon, like I said, for different companies. So let's take a closer look at this. Pardon the glare. The umpire's lot, not a happy one. From 1888. No particular team here. I mean, maybe it is, but it's not obvious. Look at this dude back here. Even he's unhappy. Going after him, right? They got chairs out there. They're running in. Not happy. But just look at the artwork. I love old baseball. It's so great. Got the copyright down here. 801. I'm not sure of the significance of that. Actually, I do know the significance of that. In a different corner is the acknowledgement that the card was copyrighted. That's that. And then a distinguishing characteristic of this set is the small 801. I guess this just distinguished them from other trade companies. I don't know. I don't pretend to understand that. But look at the centering. I mean, this isn't a VGX4 for an 1888 trade card. My gosh, there were only 7 of these graded by PSA. The highest being a 4. I think there's 5 4s and then a couple of 2s or something like that. But let's get to the back. The back's so interesting. So back to what I was saying before, and I'll kind of read this verbatim, but imagine being a kid in 1888. Combination sponge, holder, and moistener. To introduce more thoroughly our new crop of teas and pure coffees, a combination sponge, holder, and moistener, I think that's what the abbreviation stands for, will be presented to every purchaser commencing Saturday, May 19th, and continuing on for 1 week at the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company stores. These were in, looks like, Boston, Chelsea area, another one in Boston. I'm not a Massachusetts savvy person, but maybe somebody can help me out what these other locations are. These streets, maybe you recognize them. Anyways, don't miss it. All school children go wild over it. Every child wants one. So imagine that. Every child wants a combination sponge, holder, and moistener. So I think I did a little research and I couldn't find an actual picture of one, but it's essentially what, like those tacky fingers, like the little sponges used to help your fingers turn pages. So this was something that was either new or was the hip thing to have in 1888 as a school kid, but you wanted to have those moist fingers. Yeah, I wish I hadn't said that sentence. The Boston school children are all invited to be at our stores, one given away to every purchaser. So that was the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, because when you think of coffee and tea, you think of combination sponge holder and moisteners. But back then, it was, we went to one place for a myriad of things. And this was obviously, maybe it was like, the equivalent of a fidget spinner. Get the kids in the door, get the families in the door, get your kid in here, get them one of these combination sponge holder and moisteners, and walk away with some tea. It's all about creating traffic. And that return guest. It's my business hat talking. So anyways, here is the 1888 Buford Sons Umpire's Lot, baseball comic, trade card, and a VGX4. So appreciate you watching. Thanks as always. Have a good one.